This new album has been unveiled on stage 6 months prior to his actual release date. So how do you feel with it, and is it something you want to do again in the future?
Yeah. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed the process. I think it was good for the fans, it was good for us. It certainly helped us when we went into the studio to record the album, having been out and played the material and really kind of lived and breathed that material for like a month. To then go into the studio to record it, it seemed more like a natural process of recording. It wasn't so. The Deadwing album took like 11 months. This one only took 3 months to record, and I think a lot of the reason for that was because we knew it so well. We knew it like the back of our hand. By the time we came off tour, we knew it so well that it was literally just a case of going in the studio and laying it down. There was no decisions left to be made, artistic decisions left to be made, and that certainly, I think, is something we'll want to try again.
And so let's talk a little bit about Fear of a Blank Planet. Talk basically about the concept behind the record.
The whole idea, it came about really because for many years I've written songs about the kind of decline of the music industry, specifically like songs like Sound of Music, for example, very much about the decline of the music industry and the way that music has been reduced to the level almost of software. And the kind of value of the way that people value and cherish music has really changed for the, in a negative way. And I wanted to kind of write a whole album that was, in a way, dealing with the same issues, but in a much broader way, dealing with the whole issues now of download culture, internet culture, information technology, iPods, cell phones, reality TV, American Idol, prescription drugs, attention deficit disorder. All of the things, all of the kind of buzzwords that people talk about with the younger generation now, and specifically how it affects young people, kids. I mean, I think it affects all of us. I'm no stranger to laptops and gadgets and cell phones, and I don't think any of us are these days. But specifically the young generation that are being born into this era of information technology, I just wanted to ask the question really, how is this affecting people? How is this affecting young people? How is it going to infect their ability to develop a sense of curiosity, develop a sense of passion about the world, about the possibilities of life? If you have everything so easily available, everything from music to pornography is just so easily available, how does that affect your kind of psychology? And I do believe that human beings by nature don't appreciate things that come easily to them. I think they appreciate things that they have to work for, that they have to pay money for, that they have to invest some time and energy in achieving or obtaining. And now everything is so easy. Music, you can download the entire Led Zeppelin back catalogue like that for free. You can delete it just as quickly. You can download any pornography you want. And I'm really asking the question with the album, how's that going to affect these people? And it is a question mark. I'm not saying it's going to be terrible, maybe it'll be fine, but I didn't really feel anyone was asking those questions. And I'm not the kind of songwriter that likes to offer solutions or say this is how you should live or this is how you should think, this is how you should vote. I prefer to be, I've always believed that great artists are just kind of like holding up a mirror and saying, look at the reflection of the world. This is how we are. I think that's what Tom York did with OK Computer. I think that's what Roger Waters did with Dark Side of the Moon. They just kind of held up a mirror and said, this is the world we live in right now, and I kind of feel quite alienated from it. How do you feel? And that's, I guess in my own way, that's kind of what I'm trying to achieve with Fear of a Blank Planet.
And let's talk about the production you shared this time with the other guys, even with John Wesley. How did you end up with doing that? You put your ego in the closet, or just you didn't want to control everything this time?
No, it wasn't planned that way. It was simply that these days everyone has their own studio at home. I think it's probably quite common now for a lot of bands to work in a way where they take files home on their own hard disk and they work on stuff at home. Richard worked on keyboard parts at home, Gavin worked on drum parts at home, Colin took the files away and did the bass at home. I went over to Florida and I worked with Wes on guitar sounds. So in that sense, I can't really take credit for what they go home and do at home, you know. So at the end of the day, it really was a co-production. I mean, I still mixed the record. I still was in overall kind of control of the direction of the record, but everyone did a lot of work at home on their own, and I wasn't even there. So in that sense, I think you're going to be seeing this a lot more common from now on. Bands kind of making records in that way, you know. So it wasn't a plan. I just, when it came to it, I didn't feel I could take the credit for production when I wasn't even there some of the time, you know.
And yeah, everybody is in love with the song Anesthetize. That seems even the pre-tour. Everybody loves the song. So can you tell me more about this particular song, the way you write it, the way you wrote it, and the way you created it?
Not really. I mean, there's nothing more. I mean, it's a longer piece than the others. It's not my favourite song on the record. I know I know a lot of people like it, especially the prog rock fans. They tend to like longer, more epic pieces. It's a very long piece of music, but I didn't approach it necessarily in any different way than the way I approached all the other pieces. It kept developing. That piece kept developing. I kept on having other ideas that would lead to other ideas, and it ended up being quite a long piece. And I didn't even realise how long it was until I kind of finished it. I thought maybe it was like 10 minutes or something, and then I looked at the display on the computer and it said like 17:43 or whatever. I'm like, wow, that's a long piece. You know, I haven't read anything that long for a long time. It took a long time to write. It took about a month to write.
And did you feel it like it's going to be a masterpiece?
No, I didn't. In fact, I'm surprised people like it so much. I don't even think it's the best track on the record.
What's your favorite?
I love Sleep Together. I love the last two tracks, Way Out Here and Sleep Together. I was really pleased with Sleep Together. I thought, wow, that's my favourite. But as you know, at least I'm very happy with it. I think it's a great piece. But then I always think in terms of albums anyway. I don't necessarily think in terms of individual tracks. For me, Fear of a Blank Planet is a 50-minute piece of music. It's a song cycle. It's a continuum of music. So it's hard in a way for me to think about individual favourite tracks anyway. I'm very proud of Anesthetize. I'm surprised how well it was received. I'm surprised how well it was received. Yeah.
And on the other side, Alex Lifeson did something. He's doing the solo in the middle. Okay. And
quite in the beginning, about 4 or 5 minutes in, he does a solo. Yeah.
And how did you end up with having Alex on the song? And
Alex was a fan of the band, and I didn't know until I read an interview with him. The British magazine Classic Rock, and he talked about how much he loved Porcupine Tree. And so I wrote to him and asked him I was a big fan of Rush when I was growing up, so I was very happy to hear that. And we already had Robert playing on the record, and I thought it'd be great to have Alex too. So we invited him, and he very graciously accepted. I mean, there's no great story behind that. I think it's just a question of mutual kind of respect. He likes Porcupine Tree. I'm obviously
like Adrian Belu on Deadwing.
Exactly, and Michael on Deadwing as well. And there's a sense that I think I would never want to work with somebody that wasn't interested in the band. You know, I wouldn't like just go out and employ Jeff Beck for the sake of having Jeff Beck. I like the idea that whoever we're working with is also already a fan of what we do, you know, so that there's a mutual respect. I'm a big fan of Alex. Alex turns out to be a big fan of Porcupine Tree. Great, let's work together. I'm a big fan of Robert Fripp. Robert Fripp's a fan of Porcupine Tree. Let's work together. So it's that kind of mutual respect thing, and that's nice because it makes you feel like you're part of a family of musicians, and it also makes you feel like you're part of a cycle, of progressive music from the 70s that I grew up listening to, and now those guys are listening to us, and we're still listening to them.
Contemporary scene and stuff,
yeah. Dave Stewart's on the record as well. There's actually 3 there's Alex, there's Robert, and there's Dave Stewart from Hatfield in the North also on the record. So there's like this tradition of progressive musicians from the 70s that I grew up listening to that now are working with Porcupine Tree, and I think that's a wonderful honour for us,
And you mentioned Robert Fripp. I know you're only doing Soundscape on Way Out of Here, and yeah, there's a song Neil Wickering. It would be be released as an EP, like you told yesterday. Maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, he did a solo on Neil, like a proper Robert Fripp solo on Neil
More
Recurring.
guitar work than key.
Yeah. Which is nice. So that's to come. Yeah, that's to come out.
Okay, can you talk about this EP a little bit?
We're going to put out the EP, I think, in late September, early October, when we're going back out on tour. And it's basically 4 songs that are left over from the sessions. Fear of a Blank Planet, I was very, very convinced and concerned and definite that I wanted it to be short. I can't stand albums that are 75, 80 minutes long. It's just too much music. So, and I'm very committed to the idea that albums were always the right kind of length in the 70s before the CD era, you know, kind of made everything blow up into these massive 80-minute albums. So I've always been committed to try to get albums down to around the 45, 50-minute length, which is, I always thought was the best length for a record. You know, for me, all the great records are about, sometimes even shorter, like Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys is like 35 minutes, you know, Revolver by the Beatles is like 34 minutes. I think there's a Nick Drake album, The Pink Moon, which is like 26 minutes, you know. And what's happened with CD era is that everything's kind of blown up to massively overlong records. So we were very committed to the idea to keep the album short, but that meant that we had about 30 minutes of music left over. And that's going to be coming out on the EP.
Okay, but the EP would be a long EP.
It'd be more like a mini album, yeah, like a 20, I think it's about 28, 29 minutes, yes, 4 songs.
It would be a companion like you did, which record was it? Maybe at the Downstairs with the CD.
Right, Staircase Infinities.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, yeah, kind of like that.
I wanted to do a little recap of each Porcupine Tree album, you know, with your thoughts on it and current opinion on it.
I can do that.
So for On the Thunder of Life,
yeah, it was an album I made really for fun in my own studio, and every track on that record was, I kind of set myself the task of pastiching one of the bands I liked. So like, there's a track on there that's like a pastiche of Soft Machine, and there's a track on there that's like a pastiche of XTC, and there's a track on there's a pastiche of like Henry Cow, and I remember and it was really for fun because I didn't think anything was going to come of it. In fact, I didn't even know it was going to get released. They were cassettes at the time. And On the Sunday of Life was really a compilation of cassettes that had come out beforehand, like 89 and 91, I think. So it was really just fun. And I can still listen to that record because I kind of still feel a sense of fun, and it wasn't trying to achieve anything too grand.
Then of the Downstairs?
Well, that was really my first attempt to make something that I felt fused contemporary music with space rock and progressive rock and psychedelic music from the past. I think I felt after On the Sunday of Life, which was quite successful as an underground record, and I felt like there was potential I wouldn't have continued if I didn't feel I could do something contemporary. If I would have left it like as a one-off nostalgic thing. But I felt actually there was potential to do something quite contemporary and combine those influences with modern sound, sampling, with trance. The Orb were very popular at the time, so I'd already done Voyage 34. So I explored more of that aspect on that record as well. And I suppose in a way you start to hear the kind of the way that Porcupine Tree albums in future would be constructed and put together, with a mixture of songs and instrumentals, but all linked together, textures, heavier moments, vocal harmonies, vocal melodies, instrumental passages, guitar solos. And I started to put together the Porcupine Tree sound on that record, I guess.
Okay, and then Skies Move Sideways?
Sky Move Sideways was a kind, in some ways was sidetracking the Porcupine Tree trajectory, because on that record I kind of went more, I had this idea I wanted to do a long piece, a 45-minute piece of music, and it became very kind of spacey and I think at one point I realised I wasn't really happy with where it was going. It was becoming too, I tell you what it is, it became too, for me, generically progressive rock.
Okay.
And I never wanted to make generic progressive rock. And that album started to become too generically progressive rock for me. kind of ponderous organ chords and guitar solos and I think it was around that point I realised that it was going in a direction I didn't really like. But I finished it off anyway, and I shortened it a little bit, and I added some shorter tracks to it. And it's the album I've always been least satisfied with going back now, because I think it's too, for me, for my taste, and I know there are some people out there that think it's the best album we've ever done, but for me it's too stereotypically progressive rock. And it was at that point I think I realised that I wanted a band, and I wanted a band to come together because I felt that if with a band it would create a more interesting hybrid. It would bring other influences to the band, other kind of musical personalities into the mixture and take it in a different direction. And that's exactly what happened with Signify. So Signify, as you said earlier, was like a big leap forward. Suddenly the band had their own sound. It had something different about it. It became more interesting. It became more contemporary, I felt, on that record. And that, I still think Signify is one of our best records. Certainly it was a big breakthrough, and the material's very strong on that record. Stupid Dream, the record after that, was a further move into vocal orientated music for me. I was listening a lot to the Beach Boys at the time, very obsessed with vocal arrangement and vocal harmonies, and I got really deep into that on that record. And it still has actually on that record, I think, one of my top 3 Porcupine Tree songs of all time, which is Stop Swimming, which lyrically is a song still that means a lot to me, and musically I think it's a beautiful song, and I'm very proud of that. Lightbulb Sun was made very quickly after Stupid Dream, and I think it suffers in comparison. It's almost too similar, and the material isn't strong enough. And we did it within a year of Stupid Dream. It was almost like rushed through too quickly. I still think it has some good pieces on it. I like Feel So Low, I like How's Your Life Today. I think Hate Song's become a great song for live.
And Gavin.
Yeah, Gavin does some amazing. Last Chance to Evacuate Planet Earth I like. But there are also some weaker pieces on there that I don't think now, I don't think I would. I don't like Russia on Ice at all either, the track at the end. But Four Chords That Made a Million is terrible. Russia on Ice I don't like very much. I think there's some weak songs on that album, and it was really just a case of, I think, rushing it and not having enough good material to choose from. And the irony was that very soon after that was finished, we recorded Buying New Soul and some other tracks which we put on recordings, which I think if we'd had them available to make, we could have made a much better album. Lightbulb Sun would have been a better album if we'd recorded those for the album. Where are we up to? In Absentia. Big breakthrough record. It's kind of where I fell in love with metal again. I rediscovered metal, and Gavin joined the band, and I think gave the band a much stronger, more dynamic, more contemporary edge again. His style is much more modern than Chris's style was. I love Chris; he's a fantastic drummer, but he played in quite a kind of, in some respects, in a kind of old-fashioned way, which I liked. But it was great to have someone like Gavin who was a much more kind of modern approach to playing the drums. And because of the gap between Lightbulb Sun and In Absentia and the delay in finding a new record deal, I had so much good material which I'd written in the meantime, and I think we had a great selection of music to choose from, songs to choose from, and some great songs which didn't even get on the record, like Drown With Me and Chloroform and Futile and all that stuff. And so we were kind of spoilt again, and so I think In Absentia is again one of the best records we've ever made. I think that one and the new one, for me, are my favourite records at the moment. Deadwing again was, again, I like the record, I'm very happy with the record, but I think it didn't necessarily move on that much from In Absentia. It was kind of a consolidation of what we'd started on In Absentia. But the interesting thing about, I think about Deadwing is that it features, for the first time in many years, a very long piece of music, and I kind of returned to the idea of writing quite long pieces. Russia on Ice was something I wasn't happy with. It was interesting with arriving somewhere. I felt like that was one of the strongest long pieces I'd ever written, if not the strongest long piece I'd ever written. It had a kind of shape and a flow to it that kind of really made sense to me. And that kind of gave me the confidence in a way to attempt something more ambitious on this new record in terms of scale and duration. And I think Fear of a Blank Planet, in a way, is grown directly out of Arriving Somewhere from the last record. The scale, the shape of it, the kind of flow, the dynamics, the fusion of texture and metal riffing and all that stuff. And you can see that's kind of was the seed for this new record.